With that, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Ralston from Special Olympics, and take it away, Rebecca.
Great, Marcus, thank you so much. We are really excited to be here. We've had a long-standing partnership with the National Youth Leadership Council, and I think both organizations really value the input of young people and seeing how we can develop young people as leaders. And I'm going to be talking very little today. Actually, I have some youth presenters who are on the phone, and I'm going to introduce them in a second. But I just kind of wanted to give just an introductory statement on inclusive youth leadership. So, I think so much has been said about youth leadership as a whole and how we really develop young people as leaders. But one of the things that we found working with people with and without intellectual disabilities is how do we develop young people as leaders together? So how can a person with an intellectual disability and a person without an intellectual disability become leaders together in a supportive environment that really fosters everyone's abilities and allows everyone to be successful and share their gifts and their talents? So with that, I want to go ahead and just introduce our co-presenters for today. So first is Roberto. Roberto is a Special Olympics athlete from Idaho. And Roberto, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. Glad to say my state.
Yeah, you can say. Tell them how long you've been involved with Special Olympics.
Yeah. Well, hi. My name is Roberto. I'm from Boise, Idaho, and I've been in Special Olympics since I was in third grade, and it's been 10 years I've been in Special Olympics.
And what sports do you play?
I play floor hockey, softball, volleyball, bocce, and I'm trying to think of that sport, and track, and volleyball.
And can you tell everyone why you like to be a leader for Special Olympics?
I like to be a leader because so I can help other people to be. I can help other. Why I want to be so other people to be there because I can show people how they can be a leader to others.
Right, exactly. Then I would love to introduce Jamie Beheimer from Special Olympics Arizona. Jamie, do you want to give us a little bit of introduction about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Beheimer, like Rebecca just said. I am currently a partner with Special Olympics Arizona, and I assist in unified basketball, tennis, track and field, cheerleading, and I am also a member of our State Youth Activation Committee for Special Olympics, as well as the National Youth Activation Committee. And Special Olympics has been a big part of my life. I have an older brother. He's a year older than me, and we're really close. And he's been an athlete for Special Olympics for 8 years. So when I got the opportunity to do unified sports, I jumped on that train, and I haven't gotten off. And I don't plan to anytime soon. So it's nice to be here with you all today.
Thanks, Jamie. And I believe, James, we just got you on. Thanks for joining us. Do you want to give everyone just a little bit of an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Hi,
James.
my name is James Kwan, and I'm also from Boise, Idaho. I've been involved in Special Olympics since my freshman year of high school, and right now I'm going into college. And Special Olympics has been a place where I've met some of the most genuine people in my life, and I'm truly grateful for this experience. So with that, I think we will teach or introduce everyone to inclusive youth leadership.
Thanks, James. And before you guys get started, I just wanted to point out, one of the great things and one of the things that we pride ourselves with Special Olympics and in Project UNIFY is allowing young people to really take control. So the information that these guys are going to share with you today is something that they've been working on for the last year or so in really helping us to define what inclusive youth leadership really means. And so it's really exciting for us that this is youth-led, and it's really young people taking the forefront to decide what inclusive youth leadership means and how to really activate it. So with that, I'm going to pass it over.
All right, so before we begin today, we're going to take you through a little introduction on how to start inclusive youth leadership. And we decided that a little graphic of the stepping stones of leadership would be beneficial. So in the bottom left, there is leadership, which is the basis of any form of a leadership position, obviously. But from there, we want to go to co-leadership, which is more than one person leading, and we will cover that in more depth as we go through this presentation. And finally, the main topic of today, which is inclusive youth leadership, the goal that we would like all of you to take back to your state, community, schools, wherever it may be.
Okay, so before we start, we first have to ask the question of what is inclusion. I mean, to most of you here right now, that might be pretty basic. When I first heard this question, I thought it was like, we've all heard of inclusion. But the reason that we address it today is that even though it is one of the things that is most encouraged in schools and through our community, we find that it is one of the things most looked over or like not very practiced, and that our vision of inclusive youth leadership is to really bring this out to the forefront and bring a change. So, next slide. So, okay, so there's a Special Olympics definition of inclusion, but just to demonstrate it a bit, we have the definition on the PowerPoint, but the font is a little too small on this slide. So moving on. So this is a picture of one of our co-leaders. His name is Clement Colston, and throughout our time making this guidebook for inclusive youth leadership, he's really been like more a leader, a mentor, and he's been a great friend to all of us. So we're going to play a video of our friend Clement and how he introduces this notion.
Actually, the video is not playing, but I'll just preface what it said. I'm sorry, the technical difficulties, it didn't upload well. But, you know, in it he speaks really, really quickly and talks about the mission and just talks about how that, you know, when you think about inclusion, you have to think about all the different levels of inclusion. Is it something that someone can read? Is it too big? Is it too small? Are you speaking too fast? Using language that's appropriate for everyone.
Okay, so the Special Olympics definition is that Special Olympics Project UNIFY is an education-based project that uses sports and education programs to activate young people to develop school communities where all youth are able to change, fostering respect, dignity, and advocacy for people with intellectual disabilities. So how does this tie in with inclusion? We are under the view, and we are under the belief that everyone has something to bring to the table, but everyone is excellent in their own ways, and that's why this is possible. I mean, in schools right now, what I've seen that most hinders this process of inclusion is that, I don't know, it was considered not popular or not cool to include people of intellectual disabilities. But as time goes by, our vision is to move past those we're trying to make those beliefs obsolete, that including people with and without intellectual disabilities is something that really can happen.
So now we know what inclusion is, but what is leadership? Our subcommittee within the National Youth Activation Committee defines leadership as maximizing the talents of each individual and working for the better of the team by communicating with others and cultivating the importance of diverse insight. So even though that's the definition of leadership, what kind of leader are you? The different leadership styles include visionary leader, a servant leader, and a situational leader. A visionary leader is someone who defines a vision and inspires others to pursue it. So Eunice Kennedy Shriver, the founder of Special Olympics, had a vision of having a world where everyone was included, and she inspired others around her to join her in her vision. A servant leader is someone who inspires and empowers others to achieve a vision. So in most sporting scenarios, the coach is considered a servant leader because it is his goal and his job to inspire his athletes and empower them to either win a game or to achieve something during that game season. And a situational leader is someone who steps up to be a leader in the moment and guide others. Oftentimes, firefighters are looked at to as situational leaders because in a time of need, they will step up to help in any situation. But how do we get to a we? What is co-leadership, or the we? Co-leadership is shared leadership responsibility to respect the thoughts and natures of all constituents in a group
to effectively enhance the talents of everyone for overall group success. What this means is that different people have different strengths, so that they bring everything together, so that eventually, overall, we can provide overall benefit. This is pretty self-explanatory. If one person's good at one thing and another person's good at another thing, like if they come together, they'll just cordially bring about like greater success to the team as a whole. So inclusion. Inclusion is considered empowering all individuals to feel comfortable and maximized in their efforts to contribute to society. So what that means pretty much is that when you're in a group, you don't want to I know I used to be like this, like when I first went into a group, like I was pretty intimidated. I was a new guy, like I didn't really say anything. I always felt like I had to listen to those figures of authority, but that's really not what we're advocating here. We're saying that everyone, if they're new, however much experience they have, is that they have a unique set of experiences that gives them an advantage in certain areas over others. So if they bring that and share that to other people, they can share that advantage. And youth leadership is respecting the thoughts and natures of all members in the group to effectively enhance the talents of everyone for overall good success. So youth leadership, like the future is on our youth, because the youth, like everyone says this, like, oh, the youth is our future. And that really is true, especially in this category too, because inclusion and all this like tying together will start in the school setting. Will start with the youth, and if it starts at that young age, it'll expand into their adult life. So inclusive youth leadership. So Roberto, you want to explain inclusive youth leadership?
Inclusive youth leadership.
Yeah.
So like read it.
Yeah. If you could just read it and then just explain it, that'd be great.
Leadership grounded in a belief that all people have ability and can engage in meaningful leadership opportunities if given the support, resource, and time to experience and reflection.
Yeah, so inclusive youth leadership is bringing these two things together. Like we, as a whole, the youth, in accordance to other youth, are going to bring about overall group success. So one thing that was cool that Roberto and I did was that at the NSLC, in our Special Olympics North America conference, we had this thing where on a presentation on a slide, like we would work together. And there are different methods of inclusive youth leadership. For example, something that Roberto and I did is that by means of communication, he and I would ask each other questions, and that's how we would answer. That's how we would go through the presentation. That's different from just normally just reading off slides or just speaking by ourselves. So in that way, we wanted to work together. So there's just an example of inclusive youth leadership.
So once more, before we begin going through what inclusive youth leadership actually means, we're going to cover inclusion in this little graphic. So the concept of inclusion is at the top, but the focus that we want you guys to realize is that there's a difference between social inclusion and physical inclusion. And the feelings of social inclusion are, I feel valued and respected, and I am seen for my talents and strengths. When you're included in a group, you feel as though you belong and that you're not going to be downgraded for your thoughts and beliefs or for anything that you might say. But physical inclusion is something that's a little different because it's being able to access the whole building. In some cases, especially people who are in wheelchairs or who have, let's say you break your arm or you break your leg and you need crutches, being included in that building means that you're going to be able to find a way to get into it, whether it be elevator or a wheelchair accessible ramp. And there are two different types of inclusion, which we just wanted you guys to realize.
Okay, so while making this guidebook throughout the year, we decided to divide inclusive youth leadership into 5 main pillars. Inclusion is the foundation, so that was what we used as our first pillar. And besides that, we've had co-leadership, teamwork, communication, and environment. So what we're going to do for the rest of this presentation is really kind of give the goals and explain how each of these incorporates into inclusive youth leadership.
So first off, we have inclusive youth leadership, pillar number 1, inclusion. And the goals of this pillar are to recognize the importance of feeling included, to create a sense of understanding of people with intellectual disabilities, and to be able to problem solve and create ways to promote inclusion in the community. Now, throughout history, it has been widely accepted to exclude people with intellectual disabilities. They've been ignored in schools, the labor force, and society in general. It is time that people with intellectual disabilities are treated with dignity and respect. This change towards inclusion will be acknowledged only if students act on it by engaging people with intellectual disabilities and including them in everyday activities, which is why it was broken up into 3 goals. Now, something for each pillar that we have is called a tip in action, which is your takeaway or your actual action that you can use in your school or community. So for inclusion, we've decided that it is the feeling of exclusion cannot always be seen from the outside. It is important that you accept others and treat them with respect. So, in order to see people and not exclude them, is to be an effective youth leader, and you have to be familiar with the feeling of inclusion. So you yourself have to know what it means to be included so that you can make sure others feel included. And this needs to go for all people, intellectual disabilities or regardless. And there are ways to problem solve for future and to promote inclusion. And you have the power to make the change and be part of the respect movement. It's just a matter of if you decide to join us.
Okay, so the second pillar is co-leadership. So going on with co-leadership, as we explained before, co-leadership is when 2 people with different strengths bring it together and provide overall benefit. Okay, so the goals of the co-leadership. Roberto, can you read us the goals, please?
Yeah, goals are be able to put the 4 components of co-leadership into action: accountability, equality, partnerships, and ownership. Recognize the strengths of yourself and your co-leaders. Identify the importance of co-leadership.
Okay, so the 4 goals of the 4 components of co-leadership in the first goal were, as Roberto read, were accountability, equity, partnership, and ownership. So I'll explain a little bit of each one. Like equity, obviously, equity just means that when you are speaking together, when you're presenting together, when you're sharing your ideas together, just make sure that each person feels valued. Each person's ideas are well respected. Partnership means really when you have these ideas, when you're speaking, whatever you're doing, this working together. It goes hand in hand with equity, and that you share the role as a leader. Ownership is when you have a good idea, or maybe just when you have a good idea, you take pride in what you do. So you pretty much you make sure you own up to what you do. And accountability is a little ambiguous, but accountability is where whatever you did, it's not like accountability makes it sound like if you did something bad, you should be accountable for it. But other than that, it's kind of like ownership, where if you have a good idea, if you did something good, that you should know what you did, and you should take pride in that. So the tips and actions. Roberta, can you read that first, please?
Yeah. By focusing on the strengths you already have, you will be able to enhance your leadership style and become an effective co-leader.
Next slide.
Before we move on, Roberto, can you share with everyone, you and James have developed a really great friendship and become leaders together. Can you share with everyone how that makes you feel to get to be a leader with your friend James?
Makes me feel happy and good.
Yeah, what kind of things do you guys get to do together as leaders together?
Speak in front of big crowds.
Yeah, you've spoken in front of a lot of big crowds, haven't you now?
Yes.
Thanks, Roberto.
You're welcome.
So the third pillar is teamwork. Teamwork, it's also one of those things that everyone has heard about, teamwork. Yeah, you work together on a team. But one thing that I just want to give an example of teamwork is that right now, currently, I'm at EMT boot camp. And while I was listening to my instructor, one thing that he said was that when you're in a crew with your partner, when you're in a crew with whoever, the patient's family, whatever, that it's really important to watch each other backs. Like, most of these EMT professionals are also in the fire industry. And, like, whenever you're doing that, besides, like, personal safety, the second most important thing is food safety. So that as a whole, you get the job done. It's not just like applying this to inclusive youth leadership. It's not just like you get whatever you get to be done and you move on. That you really take time to bring everyone forward, make everyone feel valued, and make everyone feel like they are getting the attention that they need. So the goals of this pillar that we'll learn is that how your actions will change when you transition from teamwork to inclusive teamwork, how to use inclusive teamwork in your leadership initiatives, and how to share the power and value of inclusive teamwork with your peers and teachers. So a tip for teamwork is that I alluded to this, but teamwork is necessary for working with a diverse group of people. The lack of effective communication can impede teamwork. Through experience and reflection, you can enhance your communication skills if you are ready to learn. So one new term that we came up here is with reflection. So on a team, when you get the job done, afterwards, one thing that is very significant that I found is the power of reflection. What this means is that after you, however insignificant this may seem, after you do something with your team, I encourage everyone to take time to reflect on what happened, like what was good about that, what were some of the difficulties, what were some of the challenges, but also what were some things good that happened, what is there to be proud of. Like, through this process of reflection, like, you can really categorize how you feel. You can really trying to write something on paper, make it tangible, so that you can improve upon this and you can feel proud about what you improve upon.
So before we go on, you guys have been taking in a lot of information, and James and Roberta have done a great job explaining what we've learned. But we want you guys to know that this is just a part of our guidebook that we have created over the past year, the Inclusive Youth Leadership Guidebook. And each of the goals was created for you guys or your students, anyone, to take back to their school and their community to implement within, I don't know, let's say their student council or a sports team, anyone that would want to do it. And every pillar has activities. We'll cover it more later about in depth and what everything is composed of, but really the 5 pillars that we're explaining to you guys are for you to take back and implement in hopes of creating inclusive youth leadership in your communities. So with that being said, we have inclusive youth leadership pillar number 4, which is communication. And the goals of this pillar are to make sure team members learn the different ways to increase communication so that each member can be an authentic leader. And within this pillar in the guidebook, you will be able to utilize open dialogue, engage in active listening, and maintain professionalism. So within our subcommittee, we have agreed that in order to be a successful leader, communication is key. And by focusing and practicing communication techniques between group members, all members of the team will be able to work towards one goal or multiple goals successfully. And different methods that people use to communicate include talking, body language, and even in forms of emails or texting, the way you write things can be positive or negative. So when working in a group setting, you want to make sure that everyone is on the same page with your communication style so that everyone knows what goals they're working to or how people communicate differently. And when you maintain professionalism, you want to make sure that there's always one talker and one receiver. So while one is sharing their feelings, someone will be able to digest the information and, if necessary, repeat it back to someone else so that they know that they're on the same page and that there's no miscommunication error, something isn't being said. So the tip and action for communication is effective communication is 20% what you know and 80% about how you feel about what you know. So speak from your heart and communication will come easily. If you just talk about something you love, it's way easier than talking about something you're not 100% fond of, which is pretty much what we're saying. So in Inclusive Youth Leadership, we want everyone that embarks on the Inclusive Youth Leadership journey to be passionate and driven so that they love talking about what they can do to make change in their community, or at least have feelings so that they can communicate those to others and get other people inspired as well.
And before these guys move on, I just wanted to point out one thing that maybe you've noticed and maybe you haven't, and these guys are great in not recognizing some of the amazing tools that they use to be more inclusive in their communications. But throughout the PowerPoint, there have been little stars in the corner, and that's a great way for them to internalize who's going to be presenting each slide. So it allows the communications of the group to be not as obvious and saying, okay, Jamie, are you taking this slide? Or James, are you taking this slide? But allows the group to communicate really well and really effectively, even if they're not communicating at all. Just like to point that out because I think sometimes they don't even recognize all the amazing ways that they're being really inclusive in their communication.
Roberto, can you take over this slide for us?
Sure. Inclusive Youth Leadership, pillar number 5, environment. The goals in this section, you will learn social norms and the value and co-creating them for our interaction and leadership. Questions to consider in identifying your own school environment, how to promote a supportive and engaging environment for all, the difference between physical and social inclusiveness.
So Roberto, why is a positive environment important to you? Do you remember when we had our national YAC meeting and we would go through different sections of planning our guidebook, and how did Clem, James, and how did we all talk to you? Or what did we do to make you feel happy and positive and excited about learning?
You guys broke it down into pieces for me so I can learn. So what it is like you guys broke it, claiming that you guys broke it down into pieces. So how I can understand what you're saying.
Did we do anything else? We always encouraged you, right? We didn't ever say something.
No, you didn't say anything. You guys always encouraged me what I can do.
And that's important in a positive environment, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Roberto.
You're welcome, Jimmy. Or tip in action.
You got this, Roberto.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was hard. Tip in action. Some inclusive youth leader may be challenged by our message of inclusion for all people. We encourage these leaders not to give up, but rather to use the challenge as an opportunity to learn new ways to inspire and produce support of inclusive communities.
Awesome. Nice job. Thank you, Roberto.
Okay, so for each pillar in our guidebook, what you see in front of you is how it's broken down. Pre-pillar reflection prompts, because reflection is so important. Yeah, you'll just realize once you go through this guidebook and all the activities that reflection is one of the most important things of the guidebook, stress. And then the goals, because you got to know what goals you're going to do for each pillar. The pre-activities. These pre-activities are going to give you an idea of what to taste about the given pillar. Obviously, all the pre-activity and all the activities were designed specifically. But once you get out, it's going to give you a taste of when you get out into the real world per se. You're going to figure out, you're going to really relate what you get from these activities and pre-activities into the actual what you see outside. And then activity 1 and 2. So these activities going along with the pre-activities are just going to really exemplify and epitomize what each pillar what it's really about. And accomplishing goals. It's really important to recognize after you did something that if you set goals, it's really important to recognize that you achieved them. And then the tip in action, which we went over, and then the pillar reflection. Once again, I cannot stress enough how important pillar reflection is. After you do something, you want to know what went good, and you want to know what you can improve. As an inclusive youth leadership in the schools. So on the schools, it's divided into physical features and social and emotional characteristics. Under physical features, we have classrooms and the building, and under social and emotional characteristics, we have students and families and adult allies. Adult allies are the teachers, supporting staff, just the adults that really support the students. So relating Special Olympics into the school, as mentioned before, schools, the youth in the schools are going to be the most thriving. They're going to be the most, they're going to be the catalyst for this inclusive youth leadership. And what we're trying to get is that we don't want all this inclusive youth leadership stuff to really be like regular class. We want this to be really dynamic, and in the schools in particular, we want it to be kind of like I guess more of like a release from all the hectic business that goes into school. So inclusive youth leadership, we're hoping and we're going to initiate is it's going to be a real driving change spot for youth.
So, for inclusive youth leadership in your school, the social and emotional characteristics on the left-hand side are what you feel and what a person's feelings are about what they see, which is on the right side. So they both are connected, like James just said in the last slide. So for what you feel, everyone has different experiences, feelings about themselves, expectations, communication styles, and characters. And it's pretty much how you feel about each and every one of those and what a group combined has in those feelings. And physical characteristics are the environment around you. And something that I think about is when I was in elementary school, on the first day of school, I was never scared because all of my teachers had inviting decorations. They had, stars and smiley faces all around the room. So I felt like I could express myself and I could learn because the environment around me was positive. And showcasing the work of all, celebrating the achievements of everyone in the group, and, posting about it on Facebook is a common way to celebrate nowadays, or even hanging a certificate on the wall for that encouragement if you ever need it. And again, equal access like we talked about earlier. These are all the different things that, would go into a school environment and how inclusion would be perceived by students and teachers around.
Great, thanks. So I think these guys have done a really good job of kind of explaining, what encompasses inclusive youth leadership within the 5 pillars and how communication and inclusion and co-leadership and all of those pillars really equate to what we see as inclusive youth leadership, and being able to embody those skills as a young person and kind of be experts in those skills really helps young people to exhibit and become successful inclusive youth leaders. And I think Jamie and James just did a great job of showing how important inclusive youth leadership is within the whole school environment. And I think it can be very valuable outside of the school environment as well. But as we start to come into conversations about inclusion in schools, that's where inclusive leadership can really take a step in and help support a lot of the work that the inclusion movement is doing within schools. One of the things that we also want to point out, all of what they were just talking about is really youth-focused. So the youth are the ones who are able to take the guidebook that they've created and go out and teach their peers and work with their own peers about becoming inclusive leaders. And there's really a strong role in all of this for adults. And one of the things that we like to say is that it's not advisor, all advisor, mentor, those are all great words. We're not looking for someone who's going to, tell a young person what to do, but it's really an ally, someone who's there to support youth in their work as leaders and developing into inclusive leadership. But also push them, to encourage them and young people to really go beyond what they're comfortable with. Inclusive leadership is one of the tips and actions said. It's not necessarily a concept that everyone's really comfortable with. I think we often think of leaders as the most popular, when you think of things like student council, and your strongest speakers and your most popular students. That inclusive leadership really allows the opportunity for every individual to join the leadership world, for every individual to have a role as a leader. So I think it's really valuable to make sure that we have adults who can help young people navigate this work. So, just looking at different characteristics of adult allies, especially within support of inclusive youth leadership, they understand how youth communicate. I think it's really important that one of the things that I found working with young people is recognizing that just because I might like to use email as a method of communication doesn't mean that's how the young people that I work with communicate. So understanding how each person best communicates and best collaborates. And I think the key is that an adult almost becomes a part of the inclusive youth leadership experience. They're there to mentor and support, but they're also learning and sharing and all of that at the same time. So going through the activities, learning about communication with young people, I think can be really helpful and supportive for adults as well. I don't need to read through everything, but supporting and guiding young people, promoting the talents of each person. I think that's through Special Olympics, that's one of our biggest messages, is that every individual, regardless of ability, has an individual gift and an individual talent, and it's really our job as adults to help young people identify those. And just to share a small story, when Roberto first joined the National Youth Activation Committee last year, he was not a huge fan of speaking in public. He really didn't like it, did you, Roberto?
No.
But throughout the year, he's worked with a lot of his friends and teammates on the National Youth Activation Committee. Gotten to work with some local adults in Idaho and along with myself, and Roberto has really grown and feels much more confident and comfortable and recognizes that he's got a great story to share and that we really value having him as part of our group. And then I just, add really encouraging the connections that people can make as individuals, and supporting youth and allowing other adults to participate. I think that's one of the gifts as adults that we can have, is helping young people make connections with other adults. I think we see it in Special Olympics quite frequently that whether it's staff or volunteers, they struggle with seeing the value sometimes of young people and don't necessarily, they see them as the leaders of tomorrow, not the leaders of today. And that's something that we as adults in Project UNIFY are consistently making sure that our colleagues or other adults are really able to see and value the importance of the young people in our movement.
So, what does it mean to be an inclusive youth leader? This is actually a picture of us from our most recent presentation, which is what we are presenting to you today, only went through an entire color. And this is our committee, so very exciting. But we're just going to break it down once more about what it means to be an inclusive youth leader. So in order to be an inclusive youth leader, you must collaborate. This is actually a picture from one of our many video conferences we have throughout the year. And we would bi-weekly get on these video conferences and talk about what we wanted in our Inclusive Youth Leadership Guidebook, what our vision was, what each of us thought that we should have written out, and what we wanted people in communities across the country to gain from our guidebook. And we had to collaborate, we had to think, we had to talk. We couldn't just keep it in our minds and hope that everyone else was a mind reader. We had to talk about it and really work through some things, which we'll go to our next slide. We had to contemplate. you can collaborate, but you have to think about what you say, because sometimes we had moments where we didn't exactly know what we wanted to do. We would talk about something and we think it'd be a great idea, but then we had to take a step back and reflect and say, but is this going to work? Is this, is this something that can be done? Is it going to be feasible, or are our goals too big? And so you really have to take time to not only talk about what you want, but you have to think about what you want and if it's going to be able to work. And finally, we celebrate. So once we talked through stuff, we decided if it would work or not, we came to our ending product, which is a guidebook that is available to anyone across the country, and it really defines what we wanted for communities. It's inclusive youth leadership in a nutshell. It's 5 pillars that we feel everyone can embody and are easily not only retained but taught in everything. And so after our presentation from the first picture from the SONA conference, that was our big unveiling of our guidebook. We celebrated our accomplishments. We congratulated each other for being the ones who were able to think of the information and put it into a guidebook for everyone. So those are the 3 main characteristics of being an inclusive youth leader, and something just to take away from this presentation. So if you want more information on Special Olympics, go ahead and visit our Facebook page, or tweet at us, visit the YouTube page, or our blog, projectunifyblog.wordpress.com, for more information about anything Special Olympics related, or to find more information on inclusive youth leadership from today's presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. We wanted to leave a little bit of time to see if there were people that had questions. So lots of information, but we wanted to just see, if anyone has a question and would like to type it into their chat box. We're happy to. Jamie and Roberto are still on. James unfortunately had to get back to his camp, but if anyone has questions, or maybe you could share, if anyone's willing to share, if they have something similar, if the concept of inclusive youth leadership maybe would work within their organization, and we would love to kind of hear your ideas or hear any questions that you may have. Well, I'm not seeing anything come up in the chat box, but please feel free to, share any questions there. Jamie, I'm going to put you on the spot while we give people some time to ask any questions that they may have. Do you want to share with everyone what's been your favorite moment in developing and learning more and kind of focusing the concept of inclusive youth leadership?
Well, one of my favorite things just within our committee is at the beginning of the year working with Roberto. It was funny because I live in Arizona and he lives in Idaho, so we only really talked when we had our video conferences, and those were bi-weekly, so it wasn't too much, but as the year progressed, we were able to talk more and more, and it wasn't just about inclusive youth leadership. We would text each other, we would talk to each other more, and we'd bounce ideas off of each other for different things. And seeing Roberto grow throughout this process has been really exciting in the development stage, like how he became more included and he felt like he could talk more during video conferences. And if he didn't understand something, he would say, "Hey, Jamie, I don't get that. Like, can you repeat that?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And it's helped me refocus my brain, like, oh, okay, I might say something this way, but it might not be understandable to everyone, and I have to take a step back and say, okay, how can I reword this? And it's been that second thought that's really shown me that even at school, the way I say things or the way I talk to people or my actions, they've become more inclusive. I thought of myself as inclusive beforehand with my brother and, his classes, but I realized that it wasn't full inclusion, it was more integration. And throughout this process, I've been able to learn more about what it means to be fully inclusive and on that pathway to the inclusive youth leadership in my community. So that's been one of the best things about developing this guidebook.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Roberto, do you want to share one of your favorite memories from the last year of creating the Inclusive Leadership Guide?
Well, working on this guidebook has just been I've been very grateful for being working on this guidebook and working with everyone on this book, and it's been a learning experience about even doing conference calls and working with Jamie, and what the hard part was just with James, getting in contact with him, but then so it was like working with Clem, and Jamie was working with James, so it was like kind of nice.
Yeah, you got to learn about working with all sorts of different people from all over the place, huh?
Yes.
Really gets you an idea of what inclusion really means, huh?
Yep.
Great. We had one question that just came in, and I'm happy to answer that, which is, where is Project UNIFY located? And so just to give you a better sense about Project UNIFY, so Project UNIFY is our Special Olympics' education initiative. And so like Special Olympics, it really runs through our state-level programs. Project UNIFY right now is mostly only in the United States, and that's just based on a grant from the Department of Education. But we have Project UNIFY programs operating in 45 of the states in the United States. So that really means that our programs, for example, Special Olympics Idaho, staff members there are really going out and actively talking to teachers to bring activities like, Jamie mentioned unified sports, which is people with and without intellectual disability playing together, and, leadership opportunities like inclusive leadership, and things like End the R Word campaign around the word retard. So really working within schools to actively engage students in a lot of this work that we're doing. And we're in about 2,000 schools right now, and hoping to be in about 3,000 by next school year. So still growing, lots that we're doing, but using kind of Special Olympics as our main organization with a focus on sports, but then really expanding beyond that to ensure that we're connecting the general education population in the movement of inclusion, so that we're creating a generation that believes in acceptance and inclusion at their core. So with that, I don't see any other questions coming in. So Marcus, I don't know if you have any final words that you need to say before we sign off.
Not really. Just a reminder to everyone that I'll be sending out a follow-up email to make sure that, if there's anything that you wanted to, any information that you maybe didn't catch today, you should be able to watch the recorded version, as well as all the links and things to get in touch with both NYLC and, of course, Project UNIFY will be included on there. And, yeah, that's basically it. Otherwise, it's yours to close out.
Great. Well, we just want to say thank you again so much. I know, and a big thanks to Jamie and Roberto and James for really putting this whole thing together and sharing a lot of the wisdom that they've come across over the last year. And, I think I emailed out my email address in the chat box, so if anyone has further questions or want to learn more about how you can really engage in inclusive leadership, and we've got lots of resources and things like that. Please don't hesitate to email me, and we really appreciate that you took the time out of your day to join us today.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.